Hi Councillor Renard, Dan Hunt from Trust STFC here. Our question to you is, how does the ongoing lack of clarity regarding the financial health of Swindon Town FC affect ongoing arrangements between the club and the council? And what role are the council planning on playing to ensure the ongoing viability of the town's elite sports team? Thank you.
So the council's role and relationship with Swindon Town Football Club, the football club is obviously a private company, and therefore we have to treat it as such. Any financial assistance would be considered as state aid, so is not something that the council can get involved with. So we would expect them as a private business to pay their rent, for example, as we would from any other tenant of the council's. So we watch and wait. I understand the ownership of the club is in dispute at the moment, so that's a matter for the courts. But as a private business, it is a matter for them to resolve. But if they come to the council to have discussions, we'll be happy to sit down with them.
So is there anything the council can do proactively and legally to help the future viability of Swindon Town?
It's very, very hard to see how we could, because, as I said, it's a private business, and we're unable to give public money, taxpayers' money, to private businesses, except under extremely limited and restricted circumstances. It's something called state aid. But as I said, if the club want to come and have a conversation with us about their current situation, we're more than happy to sit down with them and see what we may or may not be able to do.
And what's the current kind of relationship between the powers that be at Swindon Town and the council? What's that relationship like?
The relationship between the council and Lee Power in particular, as the chairman, is very strong. Lee knows that he can come and talk to myself or the chief executive at any time. And we do enter into regular dialogue.
Okay, here's our second question. Can you provide some assurance that Swindon Borough Council is still committed to selling the freehold to the county ground under the terms agreed under the joint venture between Swindon Town Football Club and the Trust when the opportunity presents itself? Thank you.
So nothing has changed in recent months between us making the commitment with the Supporters Trust and the club in terms of selling the ground. The issue that has delayed matters is the challenge in the courts of the ownership of the football club, and so until that's resolved, we can't move forward. But the commitment, and I've made it publicly before, is still there to sell the county ground to the joint venture as previously agreed.
So once matters are sorted legally, what you're saying is the commitment is still there. It will happen should the law allow it, basically.
Well, subject to the club and whether it's the existing owners or some other owners agreeing with the Supporters Trust to set up the joint venture, then the council is willing to sell the county ground for the agreed sum to the joint venture. But we've made it very clear that we're not prepared to sell it to either the club or to the trust. It does have to be a 50-50 partnership.
I'm Angela Atkinson, small business owner, born-again Swindonian blogger and published author, speaking for the Federation of Small Businesses. Swindon has recently been blessed with an award of £19.5 million from the government's town deal. This is fantastic news. Now, I understand that a good chunk of that funding is going to support Heritage Action Zone projects. Even more fantastic news, the Heritage Action Zone is close to my heart. But I do just want to ask Councillor Renard if any of the fund will go to support Swindon's small business community, and if so, how? Thank you.
So the £19.5 million that the council's just been given by national government is in support of something called the Towns Fund. And at the middle part of last year, councils across the country were asked to submit bids to government for specific projects that they wanted funding for in order to regenerate their town centre and really improve the offer in the public realm. So we submitted a number of bids up to £25 million. Government agreed to fund 19.5 million, but the money does have to be spent on those specific projects that we put the bids in for. So, for example, there is money in there for the health hydro and the carriage works, but we do have to spend it on that. We can't choose to spend it on other things, I'm afraid.
So in short, none of that money is going towards helping small businesses at the moment.
Well, the Carriage Works is an incubator centre for small businesses. So, in the sense that we are investing in our heritage and in the business community through the Carriage Works, then you could say that some of that money is going in to support small businesses. But the money does have to be spent as per the bid that was submitted by the Towns Fund Board.
We're well aware that Swindon's authorities have been super proactive in getting COVID support grants to its small businesses. But we just want to ask Councillor Renard to take this opportunity to ask him, does the council have any further plans for additional support schemes for Swindon's small businesses? Thank you.
Yeah, the current focus, and the focus has been for the last few months, in supporting local businesses through the government grants scheme. So government have earmarked up to £58 million for Swindon to support its businesses. We've so far processed applications and issued grants for nearly £42 million. There are a number of schemes that continue to be open, and the information for those is available on the Borough Council website. We're still taking applications from a number of different types of businesses. So I'd urge anyone who thinks they might be entitled or want to make an application to go to the Borough Council website and submit an application. And if the businesses are eligible, we will get that money out to them as soon as we possibly can.
So Swindon small businesses can still apply if they're eligible for further funding during lockdown?
Absolutely. There are a number of schemes that are open. As I said, the details are on the Borough Council website with details of how to make the applications. We do have large numbers of applications coming in at the moment, so there won't be an immediate turnaround because we are dealing with quite high volume, and we've had to employ some extra staff in order to process them. But we will get that money out to people as quickly as possible, as long as they qualify under the guidelines of the scheme that they're applying for.
On the 11th of March, Historic England tweeted that they had awarded Nebworth House the sum of £170,000 as a grant for repairs. Why can you not apply directly to Historic England for a grant for the refurbishment of the Oasis?
So the Swindon Borough Council can't apply for a grant under this particular scheme because the Oasis is currently on a long lease with still 91 years left on it to a private company called Seven Capital. So these particular grants won't be available for a private company to apply for them.
So basically the council couldn't apply for that funding even if the intention was there?
No, not under the circumstances that we have at the moment.
The other question that I would like to ask is, why have the council failed to engage with disability groups about the impact the closure of the Oasis will have on them? Have the council instructed an impact assessment to be carried out on how the closure will impact people with disabilities? Where are disabled children now going to have their swimming lessons?
So the responsibility for that at the moment sits with GLL until the end of March, and then that passes over to Seven Capital once the lease has formally been surrendered. So any maintenance, disability impact assessments, or anything else are the responsibility of Seven Capital. And we don't know, of course, when leisure centres are going to reopen, and there are commentators around the country suggesting that a number of leisure centres will not reopen because they're unviable following COVID. But I'm expecting the other 6 leisure centres that are owned by the Borough Council to reopen in the next month or so. And but the facilities that are there are the facilities that are there, and it's not possible to recreate facilities or build them into old buildings. We need to make sure that the facilities for all of our residents are available in newly developed centres, which is why the opportunity to redevelop the Oasis is so important, because then we can, as and when that is open, there will be facilities for the disabled community and others who have accessibility issues.
So you mentioned there that Seven Capital would be the firm responsible for arranging an impact assessment. Have either the council or Seven Capital so far engaged with disabled communities in Swindon about the Oasis closure, or thought about the impact that could have on them?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of Seven Capital, so I'm afraid I can't answer that question today.
And has the Borough Council done anything with disabled communities to date around the Oasis closure?
Well, we engage with the disabled community and all parts of our community on a regular basis. I'd need to investigate to see what pieces of work have been done by officers with respective communities, but clearly the focus in recent months has been on COVID and making sure that our population are as safe as possible. But I'm happy to come back on that one.
What facilities are you providing on a like-for-like basis to match the Oasis? The Oasis is a vital community asset for all disabilities and the wider community, as it suits everybody. Link, Dorking and Highworth don't have the equivalent reasonable adjustments in place. There is a huge difference between accessible and fully accessible for a disabled person.
Well, we're happy to carry out an assessment of what is available and what can and can't be provided. We're happy to engage with the disabled community on those issues and see what is possible.
Because another point made by Helena is the fact that the Oasis closure, she said, has the council considered it breaching the Equalities Act, as it will have a negative impact on local disabled people, as we've mentioned?
Well, the Oasis is run by a private company, and so this is a matter for them to consider, not the Borough Council.
But you are committing today to the Borough Council engaging with the disabled community moving forwards around the Oasis closure?
We're happy to meet with the disabled community and discuss any issues that are of concern to them, and explore what we can do to help support them and ensure that they have access to the facilities that they want to have access to.
So, Councillor, my first question is, how diverse is the workforce within the Swindon Borough Council?
So as of the 1st of April 2020, those are the latest statistics that we have. Obviously in a month or so's time we'll be able to update these. Just under 36% of the workforce was male, just over 64% female, 9.25% were disabled, and just over 90% not disabled. 14.5% of the workforce are from BME communities, 85% identified as white British, and nearly 15% were not willing to disclose which ethnicity they were from. And in terms of sexuality, 3.5% identified as lesbian, gay or bisexual, nearly 96.5% heterosexual, and just under 4% were not prepared to disclose it.
Okay, well, thanks for those figures. A follow-on question from me is, as the council leader, are you happy with those figures at the moment, or is there a drive, do you think, for better representation, particularly of the LGBTQ plus community? Because obviously that's the question that we've got here from Swindon and Wiltshire Pride.
Well, what we want is a council that reflects the population that they serve. So if there's a disparity in any of those groups that we've just discussed, then we would be looking to try and rebalance things. It's very important that the people who work for the council are representative of the community that they serve. So and that's a piece of work that our Human Resources Department are looking at all the time.
And I mean, it seems in particular, this isn't about the LGBTQ plus community, but the BAME population in Swindon is higher than the proportion you've got there of 14% in the council. So again, is that something the council would look to rectify in the future?
And absolutely. Our Human Resources Department are looking at these issues all the time. So I just repeat, we want a workforce that as accurately as possible represents the communities that they serve.
In relation to the Pride event normally held in the Swindon Old Town Gardens, the question is, what is the Borough Council doing to continue to support decisions being made now that the responsibility is transferred to the Parish Council to ensure that these community events continue to be held?
Well, we have a group called the Events Safety Advisory Group. So any group who wants to run events in Swindon has a point of contact in the Borough Council to ensure that they can run them in a safe and legal manner. It is the case that the parish councils own some of the land on which some of these events may take place, and therefore parish councils also need to be involved in those discussions. But the council is there ready to work with Pride or any other group who wants to run an event. Clearly in the last 12 months that's been incredibly difficult, and we've got to make sure that we do it in a COVID secure way, but that's what the advisory group is there to do, to help organisers.
And in terms of Pride in particular, obviously it's historically been a very popular event in Swindon over the past 15 years or more. Is the council in support of the event as an idea?
The council has always supported Pride. If you look back at the programmes for the events, you'll see there's an introduction from me and my predecessor in all of those programmes. I've attended many of them, perhaps even all of them that have since I've been leader, and a number of my colleagues support them as well. So I don't think there should be any question about the council being willing to support the events, whether it be with advice or verbal support or support in person on the day.
And just lastly on this matter, in terms of lockdown restrictions, is that potentially going to be a factor for Pride if it were to take place this summer?
Well, we have to see how we come out of lockdown, don't we? I think we're all hoping that we can attend many events through the summer in a safe way, but I'm not going to second guess how the virus is going to affect our lives over the next few months. But I think we're all hoping that we can get out and about and socialise and enjoy these events, particularly during the summer.
Councillor, it is likely that the closure of not only the Honda plant but also the local supply chain sites will have a devastating impact upon the local community and economy. Therefore, what plans do Swindon Borough Council have in place to mitigate any such impact? Thank you.
Since Honda announced the closure of the plants over 2 years ago now, the council's been working very closely with Honda and government, manufacturers, organisations, local educational establishments, in order to ensure that the Honda employees have the best possible opportunity of moving on to the next phase in their life, and that includes the employees in the supply chain. So a lot of work has gone on in the last 2 years with Honda's support, and obviously they are running a number of these schemes in order to ensure that smooth transition. So the council has put in a huge amount of work to support that, and will continue to do so until the last person has left the site.
And are you concerned? Obviously, Honda have done some work with the employers, as you've mentioned, the employees, sorry. But no matter how much work Honda do, the fact remains 2,500, 3,000 people who work at that site are going to lose their jobs. Are you concerned about the impact, both financially and mentally on all those people?
Well, absolutely. I've been made redundant myself in the past, so I fully understand the impact that has. But that's why the work has gone on over the last 2 years to try and support those workers in terms of finding the next phase of their life, whether that be early retirement, another job in the automotive sector, setting up their own businesses, or perhaps moving into a new type of career. So if we can ensure that all of the employees, or most of the employees, have got that path through to the next phase of their life, then that will certainly mitigate the impact on them and the Swindon economy. And of course, the future of the site is another key part of that work. And we want to make sure that that site is retained for employment uses, and to get a new owner on there, setting up new businesses as soon as possible. And that's another work stream that we're busy with.
And have Honda or the Borough Council so far worked much with the supply chain? So people not employed directly by Honda, but potentially supply car parts to the factory and will therefore be affected by the closure?
Yes, absolutely. Again, this is work that's been going on for the last 2 years, working with the manufacturers associations and government. And there are some companies that provides equipment and other services solely to Honda, and it's been very difficult to work with them because all their eggs essentially are in one basket. But in many other cases, collectively, we've been able to work with those suppliers to diversify the companies that they provide goods and services to ensure that they've got a sustainable future going forward.
In terms of the plant itself, have Swindon Borough Council received any legitimate requests to utilise either part, or if not, the whole site itself? Many thanks.
So the site is owned by Honda. It is entirely up to them to do with the site as they wish. We're certainly very hopeful that they will sell it on to it'll have to be a very large company. Clearly the site's worth a huge amount of money, but we stand ready to work with the new owner to ensure that we can get as many businesses and hopefully highly skilled jobs on that site to replace the ones that are being lost with Honda's departure. But it is a matter for Honda, and I'm not aware that, well, they're certainly not saying at the moment who they're talking to and who those future owners might be, but we stand ready to work with them as soon as possible.
So you don't know of any firms that have got an interest so far in the site about potentially looking to buy?
Well, if there are any interests that are registered with the council, we pass them on to Honda, because it is a matter for them to deal with any interested parties.
And can you share any of those firms with us?
No, because that's a matter of commercial confidentiality, and it's entirely a matter for Honda.
And just as a quick follow-on from that, has Elon Musk got back to you at all since the council got in touch?
So sadly, he's not replied as yet, but I think what it has achieved is that the message has gone out there loud and clear that Swindon is open for business, and we want to talk to any businesses who are here and want to expand, or who might be thinking of relocating. And we are open for business. We've got an incredibly productive economy and a productive workforce, and we want to make sure that there are plenty of jobs there for them in the future.
So that was a genuine offer to Elon Musk, because there was some rumours that it might have been a bit of humour rather than something serious.
No, certainly not humorous. Very keen to talk to him if he's interested. I appreciate he's got global and even global ambitions and obviously ambitions in space as well. So he's got a lot on his plate. But if he's looking for an opportunity in the south of England, then I just wanted to put it on his radar that Swindon's the place he ought to be looking at.
Councillor Renard, given that the majority of nurses are women who often travel home late at night after shift, what are the council doing to keep women safe?
Well, first of all, I think we ought to say that the crime levels in Swindon and Wiltshire are extremely low. But having said that, if there are issues or causes for concern, then we're very happy to look at them. So if there are issues around lighting, which of course is an important part of keeping women safe, particularly in the darker hours, then we can have a look at that. Well, we're doing a lot of work in terms of replacing all of our lights at the moment to LEDs, which gives much more flexibility over the light levels and the quality of the light in all parts of the town. So that's certainly going to make a huge difference. But if, as I said, if there are any specific areas where women feel unsafe or are concerned, then please do raise them with me and we'll have a look and see what we can do to improve the situation.
And obviously that question is particularly pertinent at the moment, given the events on Clapham Common last Saturday, this very sad death of Sarah Everard, and the subsequent Reclaim the Streets movement that seems to be gripping the nation at the moment. Do you understand why women across the country and in your patch, in your constituency, don't feel safe at night?
Well, thankfully, these events are extremely rare, but we want to do whatever we can to ensure that we don't have such an event happening in Swindon. And whether it be the police or the council or any other partners and bodies involved, if there are particular issues, then we will want to have a look at them.
Councillor Renard, given that the council encourages its constituents to do it for GWH by staying at home, what do the council do to show support for the nurses and nursing students that work at GWH?
Well, of course, the nurses are employed by the National Health Service, so the bulk of the responsibility for that should really sit with the Great Western Hospital and the NHS. But if she feels there's something that the council should be doing to support, then we will certainly do that. We have a very close working relationship with the NHS and the hospital in particular. And if there are any issues raised by them or directly with us, then we will sit down and have those conversations to see what we can do to support.
And I mean, obviously she comes from Oxford Brookes University's campus in Swindon. How do you think that arrangement is going in terms of, is it something that could grow in Swindon moving forward? Obviously there's no Swindon University as such, but having university students, how, you know, is that a positive or negative thing for the town?
Well, we want to grow our higher education offer, and as you say, there is no Swindon University, but we do have a number of universities with a presence in Swindon. Oxford Brookes is obviously a very important part of that with their West Swindon campus, and their health and social care curriculum is highly regarded and gives people a very good start in their training in that line of work. But we've also got the Royal Agricultural University based at the Carriage Works. Swindon New College works with a number of higher education providers to provide degree level courses. And we're working with other universities to also come in and provide that offer, because we need to make sure that the high skilled jobs of the future and our businesses can continue to thrive in Swindon. And we want local people to have those highly paid jobs, and part of that will be to get the appropriate higher education qualifications that they need. And I should also mention the Institute of Technology. The council and New College have successfully bid for money to get an institution called the Institute of Technology based over at North Star. Building on that will start soon, and that will offer level 4, 5 and 6 qualifications in the more practical trades. So we're improving our offer all the time, and we're aware that we need to do more.
Joanne Kay, Unison South West Regional Secretary. Many care workers can simply not afford to self-isolate when they become ill, potentially with the virus. What steps are the council taking to ensure that all social care employers, whether residential or domiciliary, are paying their staff full pay when required to self-isolate, so that they can take the time they need and avoid transmitting the virus in care homes and in the homes of service users?
So most of our care workers, certainly the domiciliary care workers, are employed by the private sector. So their employer has a duty of care to ensure that they are kept safe and provided with the legal levels of support in terms of staying off work if they've got COVID or they need to self-isolate. If there are examples where employees think that their employer is not doing what they should do, then in the first instance they should approach their employer and draw their attention to the issue. And if not, they should then seek advice from other sources, whether it be citizen advice, their MP, or writing to the council. But we would expect all employers to carry out their legal responsibilities.
I mean, is that a concern for you? Because Unison obviously represent a lot of workers in the Swindon region, and what they're basically saying is care workers who have been a vital part of the response to lockdown essentially can't afford to be ill. And if that's the case, obviously there's a risk of COVID spreading. Let's say they get coronavirus, they're looking after elderly people, they can't afford to have a day off and are continuing to work and potentially having to, put vulnerable people at risk of catching COVID. Is that a concern to you?
Well, it certainly is a concern, because our public health department is working extremely hard to try and get the case numbers of COVID down. And if somebody should be self-isolating, then they do need to self-isolate. So in cases like that, our Department for Public Health would be very keen to hear, because they will want to take some action in order to ensure that COVID doesn't have the opportunity of spreading any further than it is already.
And it's important to mention here that they said care workers would want to be off work, and not just if they had coronavirus, any sort of flu. They know how important their job is in terms of looking after vulnerable people. So I guess what they're saying is they would like better support in order to have days off with confidence.
Well, I think we have to be pragmatic about what the council can and can't do. And if we're talking about council employees, then clearly it's the council who has the responsibility and duty of care to those employees. But if they're employed by another company, then it's that company that has that duty of care, and they need to be held to account.
Councillor Renard, they're all my questions. Thanks so much for your time. Is there anything else you would like to add on any subject discussed?
I don't think there is, Matthew.